Welcome to another episode of the True Crime Remix, where I, Omega Keys, along with my girls, cover vengeance, scams, murder, and strange disappearances from the Black perspective. This week's player is Samuel Little, our serial killer, and his many unfortunate victims. All right, let's go. Samuel Little was born as Samuel McDowell on June 7th, 1940, in Reynolds, Georgia. He was born to a 16-year-old prostitute, Bessie Mae Little, and her 19-year-old client, Paul McDowell. Soon after his birth, his family moved to Lorain, Ohio, where he was brought up mainly by his grandmother. He attended Hawthorne Junior High School, where he had problems with discipline and achievement. By his own account, he began having sexual fantasies about strangling women as a child, starting when he saw his kindergarten teacher touch her neck. As a teenager, he collected true crime magazines depicting women being choked. That kind of messed me up right there because we're talking about we're talking about the 1940s and 1950s. Well, 1950s he would have been a teenager. I'm just like so floored that there's even such a thing. Kim, you can't even function right now. You're just done.
Because I just feel like you said, that's like the 40s. Is that what you said?
1940s, 1950s.
1940s, 1950s. I don't know. I just think everything is like nice, like Beaver Cleaver nice. And her teacher just puts her scarf on, and now we just got thoughts about murder. Like, I'm a teacher. What am I like? What?
Right. I got you. Yeah. You say you done. You traumatized
already.
Yep. So in 1956, after being convicted of breaking and entering into a property in Omaha, Nebraska, he moved from Ohio. Now they're in Nebraska, and he's still a teenager because 1956 he'd only been 16. Yeah. Little was held in an institution for juvenile offenders. He moved to Florida to live with his mother in the late 1960s, working at various times as a cemetery worker. Basically, in the 1960s, as a cemetery worker, he was a ditch digger. I can guarantee you that's what he was doing, digging them ditches.
I bet you that helped to feed whatever it was.
Oh, God, yes.
You know what I'm saying? And with...
Yeah. Cemetery worker and an ambulance attendant by his own account. He said he then began traveling more widely and had more run-ins with the law at this point, being arrested in 8 states for crimes that include driving under influence, fraud, shoplifting, solicitation, armed robbery, aggravated assault, and yes, let's go ahead and throw that rape in there. In 1961, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison for breaking into a furniture store in Lorain. He was released in 1964. By 1975, he had been arrested 26 times in 11 states for crimes including theft, assault, attempted rape, fraud, and attacks on government officials. He was racking them up. An ID episode in 1993, well, not in 1993, ID's episode 93, Victims of Samuel Little's chronicles the story of convicted murderer Samuel Little and his road to the confession of strangling 93 women in 19 states over a period of a few decades. From the 1970s to 2005, named the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history, By the FBI, the murderer punched his victims out cold and then strangled them in a way to ensure that he left behind no marks that would point towards foul play. The fact that some of his victims were drug addicts, sex workers, and other women on the fringes of society also helped him avoid a murder conviction until 2014. But over the years, he did have numerous run-ins with law enforcement throughout the country for various other offenses. And somehow that's how he ended up meeting his long-term girlfriend, Aurelia Jean Dorsey. It was in the late 1971 that Samuel Little met Aurelia Jean Dorsey for the first time. On May 28th that year in Cleveland, Stewart was arrested early in the morning, along with his then girlfriend, Lucy Morado, for the robbery of a Clark gas station in Westlake. While he was in prison, awaiting his court hearing and sentencing, he was also charged with sodomy and aggravated assault. By December, his case had made the headlines, but his girlfriend Lucy was forgotten by the police, the courts, and the prosecutors. It was as if she were left to her own doing in the jail just off of Payne Avenue for 6 months. There, Lucy told her cellmate, Aurelia Jean, that she planned on testifying against Little in court. Soon after that, Jean found Little. Okay, so what's happening is I am reading the reports, and sometimes they're calling Samuel Little Stewart, before the name change. So I'm making this on the fly correction in here. So soon after that, though, Jean found Little in the old jail and warned him about Lucy's plans. She was right. When the case did go to trial in March of 1972, Lucy testified against Little. But thanks to the tip, he and his defense team were prepared and could handle it. In the end, records show that the jury found him not guilty. We should mention that because the jail was so run down, the inmates could talk through the holes in the walls and the ceilings. And that's how Samuel Little and Aurelia Jean communicated and initially got to know each other.
Whisper down the lane.
You said whisper down the lane? Yeah. She definitely told. She absolutely told.
And loyalty got her a murdering boyfriend.
Yeah. You know how desperate you gotta be to just This man had a long ass rep sheet, but she was locked up too. So hey, Here we go. All right, moving on. But it was the fact that Jean showed him loyalty when she didn't have to that stuck with him the most. So even though she was 30 years older than him, he took up with her. Stewart has described Jean as no beauty.
It ain't about looks.
Right. So she was 30 years older, and then he said she's no beauty. Right. But he has also complimented her work and appreciated the things that she taught him. When Jean got out of jail as well, the pair traveled from state to state by hoarding and selling stolen goods, a skill that she trained him in, and which subsidized their life of wandering. The couple was inseparable, and together they lived a life full of shoplifting and crime for the next 15 years. Speaking of ideas, don't have the time to research or create ideas for your own business? Or maybe just want to expand your empire while opening up a new stream of revenue? Well, Mind Over Matter Publications has you covered. Enroll into their private label program and develop your own journals. You can customize your own scent for candles and so much more. They collab with companies to provide services for fundraisers, not for profit organizations, realty groups, schools, and so on. So think outside the box and visit mom.publications.com or email mindovermatterpub.com today. Again, visit mom.publications.com or email mindovermatterpub.com for more details and let them know that the True Crime Remix sent you. That is until Jean passed away.
She was the first ride or die.
I'm sure there was more before her, but she was probably that first serial killer ride or die.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrible. As the couple stayed together, they developed a perfect routine. Day after day, they moved around and spent nights in either seedy motels or cheap apartments. They sold that stolen stuff and conned individuals to ensure their life was full of thrill and survival. But as night came, Little put Jean to bed and went out into the dark to commit his own heinous crimes, murder. From his confessions, it seems as if Aurelia was never involved with him in that. In 1988, when Little was right in his prime, Aurelia suddenly passed away due to a brain hemorrhage in Los Angeles, where the couple was living at the time. Her boyfriend did not kill her, and neither did she die from drug abuse. Her death was as natural as possible. My thing is, how are you 30 years older and you shack up with this child at the time? And y'all just on the life of crimes and you just living it up. But 30 years, even if he was in his 20, another 30, you in your late 50s, pushing 60s with this young man.
With this young man.
Yeah, with this young killer in the making.
You think about what she was missing.
Yeah, she was missing a whole lot because that's just disgusting. Yeah. Little told journalist Jillian Lorian from the New York Magazine in an exclusive interview that his mom abandoned him on the side of the road when he was a baby. Cleveland Magazine reported that his grandparents ended up raising him in Lorain, Ohio. By middle school, he had gotten in trouble for stealing and was sent to reformatory school for teenage boys when he was 13 years old in 1954. His mother was listed on the booking card as whereabouts unknown. He then ended up with 47 disciplinary reports in the year he was there. Hold up. 47 disciplinary reports as a juvenile. This is per the Cleveland Magazine. By 16, he was drifting around the U.S. and was arrested for burglary in Omaha. From there, he was in and out of reform schools and jails for various type of thefts and charges throughout his teen years and into his 20s. So this is kind of how he ended up with Aurelia. That mindset. He probably had some abandonment issues or something.
For sure. And you think about it as you're reading his story. Not once did they mention anything about mental health, like mental health recovery or any sort of like assistance.
Yeah. Nope. Not happening. By the time Samuel Little was released from a stint in Mansfield prison, his mother had resurfaced. Bessie Mae had an address in Miami. So according to the Cleveland Magazine, Little headed there in the late 1960s, and it was in Miami, reports heavy, that he would kill his first victim, Mary Brosley, in 1971. In 1982, he was arrested in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and charged with the murder of 22-year-old Melinda Rose Lepre, who had gone missing in September of that year. A grand jury declined to indict him for murder. However, while under investigation, Little was extradited to Florida and tried for the murder of 26-year-old Patricia Ann Mount, whose body was found in September of 1982. Prosecution witnesses identified Little in court as a person who spent time with Mount on the night before her disappearance. Due to the mistrust of witness testimonies, Little was acquitted in January 1984. So right now, that's 2 murders from 1984. in 1984. This is just insane that he got away with these 2 murders.
Right.
And then went on to continue killing. Like, it didn't click on his brain. Maybe I should stop because I'm getting caught or get better. Well, maybe he did get better, and that's why. Whatever. And wait a minute. Little moved to California, where he stayed in the vicinity of San Diego. In October 1984, he was arrested for kidnapping, beating, and strangling 22-year-old Lori Barrows, who survived. 1 month later, he was found by police in the back seat of his own car with an unconscious woman, also beaten and strangled in the same location as the attempted murder of Barrows. Little served 2.5 years in prison for both crimes. Upon his release in February 1987, he immediately moved to Los Angeles and committed at least 10 additional murders. Okay, so Kim, this man has gotten away with already 2 murders. Then there's 2 other people that he's beating and strangling, and he only got 2 freaking years.
I want to know why he's in the back seat of a car with an unconscious woman. Like, right. What are we doing?
Right, and you only got 2 years for this, but he was beaten and strangled. But you don't. I'm so done. Okay, moving on. Little was arrested on September 5th, 2012, at a homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky, and extradited to California to face a narcotics charge. After which, authorities used DNA testing to establish that he was involved in the murders of Carol Eileen Elford, killed on July 13th, 1987, Guadalupe Apodaca,
there you go,
killed on September 3rd, 1987, and Audrey Nielsen Everett, killed on August 14th of 1989. All 3 women were killed and later found on the streets of Los Angeles. He was extradited to Los Angeles, where he was charged on January 7th, 2013. A few months later, the police said that Little was being investigated for involvement in at least 3 dozen murders committed in the 1980s, which until then had been undisclosed. In connection with the new circumstances in Mississippi, the LaPree murder case was reopened. In total, Little was tested for involvement of murder of 93 women, committed all across the United States. Little was tried for the murders of Elford, Nielsen, and Apodaca in September 2014. The prosecution presented the DNA evidence as well as testimony of witnesses who were attacked by the accused at different times. Throughout his criminal career, on September 24, 2014, Little was found guilty and was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. On the day of the verdict, Little continued to insist on his innocence. Now, let's be clear right here. If the man said he didn't kill this one person, I actually believe him. I actually believe him on this one.
Right.
Because on November 9th of 2018, Little confessed to the 1996 fatal strangulation of Melissa Thomas. On November 13th, 2018, Little was charged with the 1994 murder of Denise Christie brothers in Odessa, Texas, after having confessed to the crimes to a Texas Ranger in May 2018. Little pleaded guilty to the murders of brothers on December 13th and received another life sentence. The Ector County, Texas District Attorney and Wise County, Texas Sheriff Office announced that on November 13th, that Samuel Little had confessed to dozens of murders and may have committed more than 90 across 14 states between 1970 and 2005. At this point, I'm going to play a little bit of Samuel's confessions because this man literally sat here and confessed.
Tell me what that girl looked like.
Oh man, I loved her. I forget her name. Oh wait, I think it was Ruth.
Okay.
She was a heavy set, big old yellow hair, and had buck teeth. It had a gap between the teeth, that's what it was. And she was like honey colored skin, and she had like her hair was not really long. It was,
How tall do you think she was?
she was about 5'7".
How much do you think she weighed?
She weighed about close to 200, about 170. 180.
Pretty big girl.
Yeah.
Right. Now, where did you meet her at?
Okay, down in the crack house. Her and about 6 other girls were sitting on the porch. The dude selling crack in there. I stopped to go in there. I seen a girl. That's why I stopped.
Now, we're going to jump forward and back in time, back and forth in time, because Samuel Little did not confess to certain murders until late 2018 throughout 2019. But mind you, he said he didn't do it for that one, and I believe him because literally this man was doing a lot. So, on November 15, 2018, the Russell County, Alabama District Attorney announced that Little had earlier that month confessed to the 1979 murder of 23-year-old Brenda Alexander, whose body was found in Phoenix City, Alabama. On November 16, 2018, Macon, Georgia, sheriffs announced that Little had credibly confessed to the 1977 strangling murder of an unidentified woman and the 1982 strangling murder of 18-year-old Fredonia Smith. In the fall of 2018, Little confessed to the 1982 murder of 55-year-old Dorothy Richards and the 1996 murder of 40-year-old Daisy McGuire. Both of their bodies were found in Houma, Louisiana. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but that's what it looked like to me. Houma. Houma. On November 19th, 2018, Harrison County, Mississippi Sheriff Troy Peterson said that Little had confessed to strangling 36-year-old Julia Critchfield in the Gulfport area in 1978 and dumping her body off a cliff. On November 20th, 2018, Lee County, Mississippi law enforcement officials announced that Little had admitted to killing 46-year-old Nancy Carol Stevens in Tupelo, Mississippi in 2005, and that case will be presented to a grand jury in January of 2019. On November 21st, 2018, Richland County, South Carolina authorities announced that Little had confessed to murdering 19-year-old Evelyn Weston, whose body was found later near Fort Jackson, South Carolina in 1978. Little confessed to having killed 20-year-old Rosie Hill in Marion County in Florida in 1982. And when we're saying that this man confessed, this man drew sketches of his victims. He gave descriptions and he drew complete sketches of his victims. It's kind of wild. Like this whole story is crazy. And we're jumping around because, mind you, he's doing some of these killings in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, but confessing to him in 2018. So this is just ugh.
And while he's confessing them, he's locked up.
Yeah, he's locked up. Yeah, so he's already caught and doing these life sentences already. So he's like, I guess F it. I'm just gonna go ahead and.
I feel like they're checking in with him. You know what I mean? I feel in my mind, the FBI is getting these cases, and they're going to him and saying, "Hey, did you remember doing this?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I did that one, and I did this one," and then like another missing person comes up, and then they're like checking in.
But it's not just the FBI that's doing it. He's just randomly confessing to the sheriffs, whoever is going to listen to him. He's just randomly confessing. A lot of these people didn't even have missing cases, and they were checking. He was just saying, "Hey, he did it." By the way, I killed this one too. Oh, y'all got me for these folks. Guess what?
Oh man.
Yeah, that's what he was doing. It was really bad like that. Okay. So on November 27th, 2018, the FBI announced that a violent criminal apprehension program team had confirmed 34 of Little's confessions and was working to match the remainder of Little's confessions to known murderers or suspicious deaths. Little began making the confessions in exchange for a transfer out of the Los Angeles County Prison in which he was being held. One included his confession to a previous cold case homicide in Prince George's County, Maryland. Previously, one of only 2 homicide cases in the county with unidentified victims. On December of 2018, he was indicted for strangling Linda Sue Boards, 23 years old, to death in May 1981 in Warren County, Kentucky. Her body was found on May 15, 1981, near U.S. Route 68. One of his victims was identified in December 2018 as Martha Cunningham of Knox County, Tennessee, who was 34 years old when he murdered her in 1975. This man was literally crisscrossing the country. Just, oh God, he was crisscrossing, just killing.
And bartering information for transfers.
Yeah. On May 31st, 2019, Cayuga County, Ohio prosecutors announced indictments with 4 counts of aggravated murder and 6 counts of kidnapping. On May 31st, 2019, Cayuga County, Ohio prosecutors announced indictments with 4 counts of aggravated murder and 6 counts of kidnappings that accused Little of killing Mary Jo Payton in 1984 and Rose Evans in 1991 in Cleveland. Both victims were strangled and dumped. The body of Rose Evans, 32, was found on August 24th, 1991 in a vacant lot on East 39th Street. Now let's discuss this right here. Because remember, all these new victims are strangled and actually died. So remember, he got locked up for the 2 years just for strangling and beating those other victims. But this was his MO. If they would have actually made him do some time and correlated these strangulations with the already murders that he actually did, but they just didn't, they let him go on, this could have been prevented.
Poor policing.
It's always poor policing. It's just always just trash, just garbage ass police work.
But it is, and it's only garbage police work because of the victim.
Yes.
Garbage policing because it's Black women.
Black and brown, because there's a lot of Hispanic women in here too.
Is true.
Black and brown, but still, if you poor, Black, brown, and poor, get back.
Yep.
She left her hometown of Bingham, New York when she was 2017. Evans had been strangled, according to the coroner, Elizabeth K. Aurelia. As for Payton, an anthropologist had to create a model of what she looked like, but she remained unidentified until 1992 when Cleveland put her thumbprint in an FBI database and got a match. Okay, so they done matched this man up in 1992, but let's see what they did with that match.
Right.
Like, what the hell? Little picked up Payton at a bar near East 105th and Euclid Avenue. He described her as a short, plump woman in her 20s with brown hair. Little confessed to killing another Cleveland woman in 1997 or 1978. He can't even keep his killings up because he done killed so many people.
Right.
The woman murdered in 1977 or 1978 was found on March 18th, 1983 in Willoughby Hills, Ohio.
That's 15 years later.
No, 1978 to 1983. No. That's only a few years. You jumped the whole. You jumped up into. You jumped forward. Yeah. According to the National Missing and Unidentified Person Systems, she was likely Black and somewhere between 17 and 35 years old. The woman's body had been dumped down a grassy slope near a fence in a wooded area just off the Interstate 271. When her body was found by a man walking his dog, only her skeleton, some clothing, and jewelry remained. So basically, she had been down that ditch for a while, for some years there. Little confessed to killing 1 woman in Akron, Ohio, 2 in Cincinnati, and one of the bodies was dumped outside of Columbus, Ohio. And 1 woman he met in Columbus and disposed of in Kentucky. Of the 2 women Little murdered in Cincinnati, 1 was identified as Anna Stewart, whose body was dumped in Grover City, Ohio. Stewart was last seen on October 6 of 1981. Getting out of a cab at General Hospital to see her sister in the hospital, now University of Cincinnati Academic Health Center. She was killed on October 11th. He killed the other woman between 1980 and 1999. The Jane Doe was anywhere from 15 to 50. What? That's a wild jump. Like, yeah, that's a big one. as the details of her age and the date of the murder are unclear. She was black, slender, wore glasses, and lived on the Rhine neighborhood of Cincinnati with the heavy female Hispanic. Basically, that's who she lived with. That's not a
Right.
description of her. This who she lived with. Little left her beside a cigarette billboard in Ohio. He remembered that part.
Right.
On June 7th, 2019, Little was indicted in Hamilton County, Ohio, for murdering 2 women killed in Cincinnati. Whew. Little had drawn portraits of many women he killed. These portraits were released by the FBI in hopes of someone identifying the women. At least one portrait solved a cold case in Akron, Ohio. You can Google these portraits. There are a lot of them. They're on the FBI webpage. All you got to do is literally Google Samuel Little's victims, and all these portraits and all these descriptions pull up. So, on November 2020, Little confessed to 2 Florida murders, for one of which another man had been wrongfully convicted. On April 22nd, 2022, a woman Little killed in Memphis, Tennessee, whose body was found on the Arkansas side of the Mississippi River in 1990, was identified as 30-year-old Zena Marie Jones. Samuel Little's victims appear to be across the U.S. from Miami, Maryland, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, Tennessee, Illinois, St. Louis, Mississippi, and more. There are literally charts of his victims compiled over the years and a description of them and whether Little provided a sketch or a note. When you go to the FBI page, it's just going to be strolling and strolling and strolling to see. And it's like, we were floored looking at this. It was very brutal to see this. Some of the descriptions read like this: unarmed black female, 1993, Las Vegas, Nevada, dark-skinned woman who was approximately 40 years old. She was about 5'5", 110 to 120 pounds. Little believed the woman had naturally short hair, but wore a long-haired wig as depicted in his drawing. He remembered the woman pointing out her son, a black male approximately 19 to 23 years old. Other descriptions just give the location, age, and a race. Some their profession. It was a long, grueling list. The FBI said that he knew details that only the killer would know, and thus his claims were considered credible. On the FBI website, they have a list of all his unmatched victims, so please go to their website and read them if you want more information. Little may have murdered more than his claimed 93 people, and law officials across the nation were trying to connect him to unsolved cases. As of 2019, they had confirmed at least 50 of his murder confessions. But then a little bit later, I saw that they got it up to 60. Yes. In 2020, the Oxygen Network decided to do a documentary on Samuel Little called Catching a Serial Killer, Samuel Little. A press release from December 30th, 2020 said, Lancaster, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation today is announcing the death of inmate Samuel Little, 80 years old, who was pronounced deceased on December 30th at 4:53 a.m. at an outside hospital. An official cause of death will be determined by the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office. And with that, the monster known as Samuel Little is no more. Speaking of folks doing too much, have you watched Faded Reunion yet? Then what are you waiting for? It's the perfect blend of drama and comedy and a great way to reset from all of this true crime. So, what's it about? I'm so glad you asked. Mandy is desperate to impress at her 10-year reunion and will do whatever it takes, but so is her rival Jessica. So Mandy brings along the handsome Dr. Dante Perez as her wingman, and that's when things get crazy. And guess what? It's written and directed by yours truly. Check it out now. You can watch it on Tubi or YouTube, and the best part is free. So what are you waiting for? Go watch it now.
That's heavy.
This heavy, and this dude, this crisscross applesauce killing that he was doing was just
Yeah.
insane. And the details he provided, like, okay. So when he did these confessions, some of these confessions were taped, y'all. They were literally taped confessions. And there's multiple YouTube videos of these confessions. One of the things that stood out to me, this man, hold up, this man is hot freaking garbage by no things. But on one of the videos, something that stood out to me, the person he was speaking to, I don't know if it was the sheriff or the FBI at this time, but one of them, whoever was talking on the tape with Little, you don't see them, you just see Little on this video. The person was describing a transgender person and said, so it was a man dressed up as a woman. Samuel Little said she. Yes, he didn't even address the transgender part of it. He went back and said, yes, she was, and described her. But this man is a sick ass killer, but he still respected the fact that of the transition of, of a transgender person enough to give them that respect and not even address what the other person on the side of the video did, because I don't know if the person was saying it to try to trigger Samuel Little, as that was his reason for killing it. Obviously not, because he got 93 women.
Or to even degrade the fact that the woman that he killed was a transgender.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like almost like insulting.
Yeah, I don't know where that was, but Samuel Little did not fall for that. He still called her, she. So, there you have that about his little sick ass. But
like, where is he? What's he doing? Well, I mean, we know what he's doing, but like professionally, what takes you like on the crisscross applesauce?
Remember when he met Aurelia? She had showed him how to get stuff and trade so they can live their wandering lifestyle. So they were
like nomads.
Yeah, they were like nomads and selling stuff. So that's how he was able to continue. But the fact that he had got caught years before,
right?
He got caught and they let him go. And he didn't just get caught not once, not twice, but it was 4 times he had got caught and basically did serve no time. And I want to say something else. I said that the women were poor. They were not poor. I was just meaning poor policing, because some of him victims, if you read those reports, some of his victims, like he listed as, he think one of them was someone who was in the Air Force. Like these were not women of the night,
right,
or drug addicts or anything like this. One woman was visiting her sister at the hospital. It was just these crimes of opportunity for him. That was the gist of his killings. He was just like snatching these women up and then, doing whatever. But his list of 93, and I believe him for the fact that he said he didn't do that one. Right. And he stated his innocence or not. He probably didn't do that one.
But he also kept a journal.
He kept a journal. He kept the sketches of them. And y'all, those sketches look like some 3rd grader did.
Their earrings is like this big.
Yeah. The sketches look, this is how we get through. We gotta this is True Crime Remixed, y'all. This is how we get through it. We have to laugh for crying, because these crimes, like this stuff is like so heinous. But he kept the detailed descriptions of, all of his victims. I mean, even mentioning the one lady, he was like, nah, she had on a wig. She probably had natural hair. And it's not like he was degrading the women. He just was stating the facts that she had natural hair, but because, she was my victim, I drew the wig on her. Basically, his cartoon drawing left the wig on her because that's what the lady preferred. It's like he was still respecting them, but he was killing them.
I'm thankful that he was not one of those serial killers that wasn't cooperative.
I think he wanted to get caught. Well, I think because once he got caught, he just started, hey, and by the way, you know what?
Yeah, but his by the ways, they brought a lot of closure to families.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's all you could be thankful for with them. Sure. I mean, I I'm sure that there had to definitely be some mental illness going on with this, because I mean, but that's still not taking away from the fact that he's a serial killer. But you have to be sick, sick
Sick.
to be killing people the way that he was just killing them, like strangling, beat you, just toss you out next to the cigarette billboard sign,
Nothing.
toss you in the ditch. I'm look, I done beat you so bad and strangled you that I wore myself out. So now I'm unconscious
Right.
along with you to get caught with this body next to me and just let him go. That's the part that just drives me insane. That part that he
Yeah.
was,
That's violent.
yeah, he was so violent. Like just so, oh God.
Hug your people. Just give
Hug
everybody
them,
a
love
hug
your
'em,
people.
love on 'em. Love
And
'em,
I
hug
don't
'em.
know, because he didn't say what was his way to get the women. Like
his lure. Like what was his
was
groove?
lure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because remember we covered the one guy and he was like, yeah, that's what's wrong with you black bitches, and that was his lure.
Yeah. He would guilt
them into getting them. He would guilt them into their deaths. But this one, like, I wonder what his thing to be able to get that many women. I mean, and come on, this woman, she was on her way to outside the hospital. She snatched her up while she was on her way to go visit somebody. So what can somebody say to you
Sneak attack.
to get you
That's
over there?
sneak
I know,
attack.
but a hospital is a busy place. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, the whole, how did he get you away from everybody to,
Right.
because he wasn't just waiting for, I got you alone. It was a long, dark road. None of that. He was
Right.
like, I'm getting you wherever you at, wherever I feel the hankering to
Right.
snatch somebody up, I'm snatching somebody up.
And you think about it, when you go to the hospital to see somebody, you're like on a mission.
Yeah.
So what was
That's
it
what I'm
that-
saying. It was
Right,
something
right.
that had to be to really get away. Like it's wild. Yeah. Oh, anyway. That was all we have on Samuel Little, crazy serial killer, diabolical. You can watch his I don't know what happened to Kim.
My battery.
You can watch him on those Oxygen episodes, that ID 93 episode, and get more information. Remember, you could check out the FBI website for all of the victims. And this other thing, I implore, if you have any missing relatives and they've been missing during any of, Samuel Little's crime spree, or any crime spree for that matter, make sure you are checking the FBI boards for the missing persons, for people that they found from, hopefully your family member wasn't a victim of a serial killer, but
make the police do their job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make them do the work.
Make them do the work. Look for your people and stay up on them. Yeah, it's wild. Well, that was the end of Samuel Little. Before we go, make sure you follow us on IG at True Crime Remix, Facebook at True Crime Remix Podcast, on TikTok at True Crime Remix, and on Twitter at True Crime Remix. Watch or listen to us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Podcasts, Audible, and YouTube. Yes. Be sure to subscribe, like, leave us comments or a review, depending on the platform. We do talk back. If you leave us a comment, we will respond. Good, bad, or indifferent. There we go. This has been another episode of the True Crime Remix. I am your host, Omega Keys, along with Kathy Taylor, who's not with us today, but my girl, Kimberly Edward, is. Until next time.
See you later.
Peace, love, and hair grease.